What if one of Hollywood's most dazzling marriages was never the fairy tale it seemed? For decades, Shirley Jones and Jack Cassidy looked like the perfect couple, glamorous, talented, and adored by millions. But at 92, Shirley shattered the illusion with revelations so raw, they forced the world to see their love story in an entirely new light. Affairs, heartbreak, whispers behind closed doors, and a truth so explosive it still shakes Hollywood's memory of them today. This is not the story of a perfect romance. It's the story of passion, betrayal, and secrets that refuse to stay hidden. Shirley Jones was America's sweetheart. Fresh from winning an Academy Award for Elmer Gantry, she embodied innocence and charm, the kind of actress Hollywood adored. Jack Cassidy, meanwhile, was Broadway royalty, handsome, witty, and gifted with a voice that could light up a stage. When their paths crossed in the early 1960s, the press went wild. Together they were magnetic, a leading lady married to a leading man, a love story that seemed written for the silver screen itself. Their early years were a whirlwind. Parties with Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, and Hollywood's elite filled their nights. Flashbulbs followed their every step. Reporters gushed about their chemistry, calling them the perfect couple. For Shirley, raised in a small Pennsylvania town, it was a dream come true. The spotlight, the romance, the glamour. Jack's boldness dazzled her. His confidence made her feel like she was part of something extraordinary. But fairy tales often hide cracks. Even then, Shirley sensed an undercurrent she couldn't quite name. Jack loved attention, sometimes too much. His laughter filled a room, but so did his ego. He wasn't just living for success, he was chasing validation. The very qualities that made him irresistible would soon become the shadows that haunted their marriage. What looked like perfection to the world was already showing signs of unraveling behind closed doors. From the moment Jack Cassidy walked into a room, people noticed. He had the rare gift of making anyone feel like the center of his universe, until he decided to remind them that he was the star. Women swooned, men admired, and friends described him as the life of every party. Shirley, with her small-town upbringing and grounded warmth, fell under his spell completely. To her, Jack represented excitement, glamour, and the fast-paced thrill of Hollywood she'd only dreamed of. At home, Jack's charm was intoxicating. He knew how to make Shirley laugh until her sides hurt, how to sweep her into his arms and silence every doubt. Together they became Hollywood's golden couple, admired for their beauty and their seemingly effortless happiness. In those years, Shirley convinced herself that she had found her perfect match. But the same charisma that captivated her also drew others, constantly. Jack didn't just enjoy attention, he fed on it. Every laugh, every admiring glance, every flirtation felt like fuel to his restless spirit. What Shirley saw as confidence was, in reality, an endless hunger for validation. He wasn't satisfied with being adored, he needed to be worshipped. And while Shirley tried to embrace his energy, she soon realized his appetite for admiration would never be confined to their marriage. The very magnetism that drew her in was also what would push her away. It didn't take long before Shirley began to notice the subtle cracks in their picture-perfect union. At parties, Jack's flirtations went just a little too far. Compliments lingered, touches overstayed their welcome, and rumors began to swirl just loud enough for Shirley to hear, but quiet enough that she could pretend they didn't exist. For a woman raised on traditional values, pretending felt safer than confronting. Divorce wasn't in Shirley's vocabulary. She had grown up believing in loyalty, in vows that meant forever, and Jack was the father of her children, the man she adored, the partner she still believed she could hold on to. So she brushed aside the whispers, convinced herself it was nothing more than the price of life in Hollywood. After all, wasn't this the way things worked in the entertainment world? Weren't all leading men tempted? But deep inside, Shirley knew better. The very qualities that made Jack magnetic, the boldness, the charm, the confidence, were also the seeds of destruction. He wasn't just chasing roles on stage, he was chasing validation wherever he could find it. It wasn't enough to be loved by her, he needed the admiration of everyone. For Shirley, the dream of a storybook romance began to feel like a carefully painted backdrop. One gust of wind, and the entire facade might come crashing down, and soon it did. At first, Shirley convinced herself Jack's behavior was harmless. A smile here, a flirtation there. It came with the territory of being married to a star. But denial could only last so long. The whispers grew louder, and the rumors became undeniable. Jack wasn't just charming, he was unfaithful. Shirley would later admit that the affairs with women were countless. Actresses, party guests, even adoring fans. Jack craved attention, and he took it wherever he could find it. Each betrayal chipped away at Shirley's trust, but she held on, believing love could outweigh temptation. She forgave, endured, and stayed silent. But then came the revelation that changed everything. Jack's affairs weren't limited to women. Quietly, behind closed doors, Shirley discovered a truth Hollywood would have buried in an instant. Jack was openly bi, at least within the privacy of their marriage. Friends whispered about his secret encounters with men in the theater world, while Shirley herself later confirmed what many suspected. In an era where such rumors could end a career, this was explosive. For Shirley, it was devastating. How could she compete with desires she could never fulfill? Jack himself told her bluntly, he wanted to experience everything in life, every passion, every possibility. Fidelity wasn't in his nature. For Shirley, this wasn't just infidelity. It was living with a man whose heart could never belong to her alone. To the outside world, Shirley Jones had it all: a thriving career, 3 sons, and a husband the world envied her for. She was America's sweetheart, always poised, always radiant. But behind closed doors, she was crumbling. Jack's betrayals weren't rumors anymore. They were her daily reality, and the weight of them was crushing. Shirley confessed later that she spent much of her marriage pretending. When the cameras flashed, she smiled. When reporters asked, she praised her husband. To Hollywood, she was the glowing wife. But inside, she was unraveling. Every time Jack disappeared at parties, every time he flirted openly in front of her, she bit her tongue. She chose silence over confrontation, believing that walking away would shatter her family. Yet silence came at a cost. Shirley began to feel less than never enough for Jack, no matter how hard she tried. Her devotion clashed constantly with his betrayals, leaving her trapped in a cycle of forgiveness and heartbreak. She tried confronting him, asking why their love wasn't enough. Jack's response was brutally honest. Monogamy wasn't in his nature. It was a truth that cut like a knife. But she accepted it, not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't imagine a life without him. For Shirley, love meant endurance, even when that love was breaking her apart piece by piece. By the late 1960s, Shirley's private suffering was no longer hidden. Hollywood thrives on gossip, and the Cassidy marriage became prime fodder. At first, whispers circulated quietly among insiders, but soon, tabloids began printing blind items about a leading man with a golden voice, spotted leaving nightclubs with companions far younger. Stories about Jack's reckless affairs, both with women and men, spread like wildfire. Shirley was caught in the storm. Friends and acquaintances would gently probe, asking if the rumors were true. She'd smile politely, deflect, and continue playing her role as the devoted wife. But inside, the humiliation burned. The truth was worse than the headlines, because Jack wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. At parties, after a few drinks, he'd brag about his encounters, sometimes in earshot of Shirley herself. For her, every headline was a fresh wound. She wasn't just enduring betrayal, she was enduring it in public, forced to smile while the world speculated about her marriage. And the cruel twist, the narrative began to shift. It wasn't just about Jack's behavior anymore, it was about Shirley's silence. Why didn't she leave? Why tolerate such humiliation? To Hollywood, she was either heartbreakingly loyal or hopelessly naive. To Shirley, she was simply surviving. But survival could only last so long. Decades later, she finally chose to tell her side, and what she revealed shocked everyone. For decades, Shirley Jones carried her silence like a burden. She smiled for cameras, kept her family together, and protected Jack's reputation, even as he tore her heart apart. But at 92, with little left to lose, she finally told the truth. And what she revealed left jaws on the floor. In interviews and in her memoir, Shirley admitted that Jack had never been faithful. Not once. Every suspicion, every rumor was true. He lived without boundaries, flaunting his double life as though daring her to walk away. And the shocking confirmation, his affairs weren't only with women. Shirley revealed that Jack was bi, a truth Hollywood had only whispered about for decades. She confessed the devastation she felt. The humiliation of knowing her husband's betrayals weren't secrets. They were practically performances. And yet she never stopped loving him. She described Jack as the love of her life, a man consumed by desire and self-indulgence, but a man she couldn't stop adoring. Her voice carried both sorrow and strength. She wasn't bitter, she wasn't angry, she was finally free. But her confessions did more than reveal the truth. They shattered the carefully preserved image of Jack Cassidy and forced Hollywood to re-examine one of its golden couples. Shirley's revelations sent shockwaves through Hollywood. For years, Jack Cassidy had been remembered as Broadway's charismatic star, the dashing actor who fathered teen idol David Cassidy. His reputation was that of a charming leading man. But Shirley's honesty fractured that image. Fans were divided. Some were stunned, unable to reconcile the beloved performer with the reckless man Shirley described. Others weren't surprised. Rumors had always lingered, and her words simply confirmed what many suspected. What unsettled people most wasn't just the affairs, but Jack's brazenness. He didn't hide his double life. He flaunted it, even at the risk of scandal. For Shirley, the fallout was bittersweet. She had finally spoken her truth, freeing herself from decades of secrecy. But in doing so, she watched her husband's legacy unravel piece by piece. Even his tragic death in a fire at age 49 was reinterpreted, seen as yet another reckless end to a reckless life. Her children felt the reverberations too. David Cassidy had long spoken of his father's narcissism, but Shirley's confessions gave his words new weight. Fans revisited David's struggles, wondering how much stemmed from Jack's chaos. Yet Shirley's legacy only grew stronger. At 92, she was no longer just an actress, she was a truth-teller. And in peeling back the glamour, she showed the devastating cost of loving Jack Cassidy. Even after laying her truth bare, Shirley Jones left the world with questions. She admitted to the affairs, the betrayals, the endless hunger for attention that defined Jack Cassidy's life. She confirmed what Hollywood had whispered about for decades, that her husband's desires knew no boundaries. But as she spoke, her pauses hinted at memories too raw to share. Friends believed Shirley revealed only what the public could handle. Rumors of darker behavior lingered. Cruelty, breakdowns, reckless encounters. Perhaps she stayed silent to protect her children. Perhaps even after all the heartbreak, a part of her still wanted to preserve some shred of Jack's legacy. What she did reveal was haunting enough. She described loving a man who broke her, forgiving him even as he flaunted his betrayals. And still, she admitted she would never stop loving him. That paradox, devotion intertwined with devastation, made her story unforgettable. At 92, Shirley Jones wasn't just confessing, she was liberating herself. She was free to finally show the woman behind the smile, the truth behind the facade. But with that freedom came a lingering mystery. If this is what she chose to share, what secrets did she carry to her grave, never to be known? That unanswered question is what keeps her story alive.